Hello, and thank you for joining No Wrong Choices. Along with Larry Shea and Tushar Saxena, I'm Larry Samuels. This is a podcast about the adventures of life, where each episode features what we refer to as a dreamer who had an idea or a vision, chased it, and got there or got pretty darn close. If you enjoy these stories, please be sure to follow or like us on your podcasting platform of choice or connect with us at NoWrongChoices.com. This episode features sports anchor Erica Herskowitz of the legendary station WFAN in New York. It just so happens that our own Tushar Saxena also started his career there, so he is the perfect person to kick this one off. Tushar, take it away.
I've had the opportunity to know Erica Herskowitz for about a quarter of a century, which obviously dates me and dates her, which is a bad thing. I love her to death. I knew from way back when that she was going to be a star. She really is. She's a grinder, right? We've spoken to people on this show about, who have been pioneers in certain industries and have been those who are wanting to make their careers, those who have made their careers. But she's one of those folks who kind of stepped into the industry and, like a lot of us, have been a grinder. She's really been able to, get a lot of gigs in the industry and keep consistently making money and can keep consistently making herself better with the craft, etc. I love Erica Herskowitz. I have always told her she should be a much bigger star than she actually is, even though she's a huge star to me. So I am really looking forward to speaking to her now.
Yeah, I watched Mike Francesa with FAN, and she did, updates pretty much daily. So she was on my television daily. She's amazing at what she does. I'm always excited to hear about the WFAN world, right? It's such a mysterious world, the greatest sports radio in the world primarily. And Erica is a huge part of that story. Mainly, I'm looking for some dirt on Tushar. But besides that, I do hope
There's a line out the door, people with that.
No, but seriously, I know she understands that world, grew up in that world, and I'm fascinated to hear about it and what it's like growing up in the industry, because she really got opportunities when she was super young, and it couldn't have been easy. So I'm excited to hear her story.
Yeah, and she's also had the opportunity to watch the industry change underneath her feet, I think we all have to a certain degree, but not like the radio industry. So her stories are certainly incredible. So with that, here is Erica Herskowitz. Now joining No Wrong Choices is the veteran sports anchor most often heard on WFAN Sports Radio in New York, Erica Herskowitz. Erica, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so guys, full disclosure here. I've known Erica Herskowitz for at least a couple of years, from back in the day when she was over at WFAN with what I will call the best intern class WFAN ever had. That did not include me. That was Erica and a bunch of others. And the reason I say this is because she, along with many others, were hired by FAN. At least I think she had like 7 or 8 people in that class. At least 5 of them were hired over at FAN, which is an unbelievable number. So I will get into the story about Erica Herskowitz a little bit. I mean, she was by far and away, she distinguished herself amongst her peers when she was there, at least 2 years ago, so to speak.
So you could say it was a quarter of a century ago at least. So it's legit.
I am not going to.
And Erica, I have to ask, if you came in while Tushar was there, were you in a position to be hazed by Tushar? Did that happen at all?
It did. It happened. But I actually learned a lot from Tushar. He was a master at cutting tape and delegating. And so I did learn a ton from him. One of the best things I learned from him was if you don't order your own, if you're not on the food order, you don't have to go get it. So as an intern, if I didn't order dinner, I didn't have to make the long trek up to 36th Street to go get the food from the delivery person, even as an intern. So I always appreciated that about Tushar, because he did haze a little bit, but not any way in a demeaning way or a way that would make you feel inferior. So.
And I will say this, this notion of delegation was what I would tell every intern is that I am a naturally lazy person who wants to watch television from about 7 till 9 o'clock. Therefore, you must learn this craft quickly or else I will get pissed off.
That's true. That's very true.
So, while I know some of the story, while I know some of your story, I don't know a lot of your story. So let's get into it a little bit. We'll head back to your college days at Rutgers. Why did you want to get in? What made you want to get into the business?
Well, I think as a young child, I always loved radio. It was always something I enjoyed. Even, coming home in middle school, I would sit, in the dark and just listen to music or listen to the Rocky Allen showgram on WPLJ. Just like that aspect of talk radio that I loved. It was comforting to me. And so always in the back of my mind, it was something I enjoyed. And never in my wildest dreams did I think, oh, I'm going to be in radio. Although my mom did find my parents just moved, they just were cleaning up the house and they found this cute little drawing that I made when I was in second grade. I guess it was for school. It said, when I grow up, I want to be, and it said on the radio, which is really weird,
Wow.
really weird because I mean, who knew when I was 8 years old, 7 years old that would be something that was even in my mind. So fast forward, I got to Rutgers and we went to an activities fair. Rutgers has an activities fair like all colleges do. And I saw the Rutgers radio booth and went over, started chatting with some of the people there and went to a meeting, and pretty much the rest is history. Now, I really didn't know that I wanted to get into sports. I was going to the meeting looking to maybe look into getting into news, but the line was very long for the news department. I mean, it was very long. And there were all a lot of women there and it just didn't seem like my vibe. But then you turn to the sports department and there were like 8 or 9 guys just sitting around, like doing nothing, basically shooting the breeze and hanging out. Yeah. And so that's
totally, that's right, total college radio right there, boy.
Exactly. And that sort of seemed more my vibe. And the fact that there was no line to talk to the guys and see if I could get involved, it's sort of how it actually happened.
So was that an easy transition? Were you a sports fan? Because, radio is getting your ear, obviously, no pun intended there. But was it an easy transition to just make it sports radio?
Yes, because at the time I was a massive Knicks fan. I mean, I was like the sit on the couch in high school. And if there was a big game on, didn't go out, hung in the same exact seat in the wedge of the couch because it was like the good luck spot. I was like one of those people. And so, and I loved, it was the 90s, right? So it was the John Starks, Patrick Ewing, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, like the good years. And so I got to enjoy that.
The OJ Chase years.
Right. So, even my high school quote in my yearbook was a Pat Riley quote, which ultimately probably wasn't originated from Pat Riley, but who cares, right? So I wanted to have him sort of in there. And so I loved radio and I was a sports fan and I thought, oh, how hard could this be, right? So so I made the move over and ultimately ended up working for the sports department at Rutgers.
So you jumped in there and, that type of a school, that type of an athletic program must have opened up all kinds of possibilities in terms of just cutting your teeth and getting experience. What types of things did you do while you were there?
Well, if you remember in the late 90s, so Rutgers was still in the A10 when I got to the school. They were actually transitioning over to the Big East. They had just built this big stadium. But the sports department at WRSU, which is the station at Rutgers, is pretty established and very well run. And so what did I learn? I learned all the behind the scenes stuff, running a board, cutting tape, all the stuff that you would need ultimately if you wanted to be, say an intern at WFAN.
I was going to say Tushar's intern.
Right. Another major. Right. Exactly. Probably why Tushar liked me because I came in with the skills to know how to do the stuff.
You had
so he
skills,
didn't have to,
exactly.
Right. He didn't have to teach me how to use a razor blade and a splicing techniques to cut tape, which is what we actually had to do before there was anything digital. And so, I was able to do it and I learned it all at the Rutgers radio station. And also in my time there, I started doing play-by-play for basketball because, like I said, I loved basketball and I got really into Rutgers basketball. I never did football. It was never my thing, but the basketball was really something that I really enjoyed, going to games, watching games and being part of all that. So I was able to travel with the teams, the men and the women, and really got some great experiences from being there and doing that.
Now, did you intern your entire time at Rutgers, or was it just like the last couple of years?
So I interned at WFAN my second semester junior year, and then by the end of that internship, I got hired, for like $9 an hour. Was it $6 an hour? $9 an hour?
No, it was $9 an hour.
$9 an hour, right? Right. No, I know So I got hired to, obviously cut tape and learned how to run the board at the fan. And so I was doing all the behind the scenes stuff there as an employee. So my entire senior year.
you get in there, and this is my dream job? Do you have reservations about it? What are you thinking as you now start to see the nuts and bolts of how this industry is going to work? Did it just resonate with you completely?
Honestly, I was really excited to be there. A lot of the guys that had been at WRSU at Rutgers had interned at the Fan and had success and enjoyed it. So I was just like, oh, well, this seems like a great path. This is what I want to do. But I went into it not knowing what to expect, and I had no idea that all of this would have come from that. I never in my wildest dreams thought I was going to actually be on the air. My aspiration was never to be on the air. I was told
Wow.
I was told you're never going to be on the air. You don't have a voice for radio. And so,
Wow.
yeah,
Actually, I think I might have told you you're not going to be.
You did say that to me. You do. That was one of Tushar's speeches. You're not going to be on the air, so you need to focus
Great.
on.
Yeah, so just do your job.
Do your job, right? And what do you want from Michael Stelly, right? So that was it.
There you go.
So that was the deal. So I had no idea that all of this would have happened from that internship. So.
All right, but the one thing I'll say about Erica, she was very driven. That was the one thing I really noticed when she was an intern over at WFAN. She was extremely driven.
I was
Obviously
focused, very focused. I was not there to get a boyfriend. I was not there to flirt with anybody. I was not there for attention. If you didn't look at me, I was happy. Like, I just wanted to be there. I was doing my job. I wanted to learn as much as possible, and I was not there for any other reason. Sure enough, I ended up meeting my husband there, but
that wasn't the objective.
That's not why. Right. That was not the objective.
But it wasn't year one. It wasn't year one for that. But
no, it wasn't. And I had a singular focus, which was, what am I going to do here, and what am I going to learn, and what's next? That's always what was always on my mind, is what is next. But
your big break obviously was at FAN, and it was with Mike and Chris. And, you were working that show, and they took notice. I mean, they took real notice, and you took advantage of that.
Yeah, they took notice, but the parts that they took notice of it was pretty ironic, right? So they thought I was cute, right? Probably because I was this girl that, at the time in the 90s, now you see cute girls all the time, right? So you see young women on TV doing all this sports. But at the time, that was, I was actually there when Andy Rooney came out with that little end of 60-minute piece about Jill Arrington and how he thought women on the sideline women didn't belong on the sideline. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a pretty famous little, he would do that thing at the end of 60 minutes. It was 60 seconds he would talk about paper clips, or he would talk about
he was angry about something.
Something, right? Those eyebrows, right? So, but he actually, while I was there as an intern, one of his pieces was about Jill Arrington and women don't belong on the sideline of a football game. And so it was a very different time. It was like, there were women, right? So there was Susan Waldman, there was, Anne Liguori was doing a show, but very few. There was Leslie Visser. And if you think about it, all of them sort of come from the same ilk, right? So they were a little older. They were not these like younger women at the time, right? So when I came in, it was like a little bit of a novelty, right? That I was there. Tushar, I pretty much was the only woman there.
Yes, that is very true.
Right. There were some women that were producing, but
they were behind the scenes, correct?
Right. But in my age bracket, right? So they took notice. They would make jokes about me dating Chris Carlin, right? So that was their shtick. I don't know if you remember, Tush, but that was like
I remember all of it very vividly.
Right. So that was the joke, and they would have me on and tell us the truth. Did you go on a date with? It was like they did things that sort of kibitzed, but never really took me seriously. And then I think Chris was on vacation, and it was in March. Obviously, it was the Big East tournament. Rutgers was playing at the Garden. And they were simulcasting a lot. Mike was on by himself solo, and he was simulcasting college radio stations for play-by-play. If there was a game, he'd say, pull it up, right? So pull it up. So he pulled up the Rutgers feed, and I happened to be doing the game, and he knew me because I was intern / turned board op / tape
really?
op.
You were doing that? You were doing that game?
Yeah, I did the game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was doing a game during the Big East tournament, and he heard my play-by-play, and he aired it, simulcasted it on the Fan. And then the next week, I got a note in my mailbox from Mark Chernoff asking me for a demo tape.
Wow.
For updates. And so that's how it happened. I hadn't even gotten out of Rutgers yet. It was March of my senior year. And then by June, I was on the Fan, which is really wild considering.
That's amazing.
Considering I didn't have a voice for radio, and
Right.
I obviously said you're not going to be on the air here at WFAN.
Right.
So.
Well, that actually hearing you say that now, it absolutely resonates that you did absolutely say that multiple times to me. And I never was
I
offended
think I
by
might have only
that.
said it once. Please
And
don't
she
say
still
multiple
talks to you
times.
sometimes.
He beat me down. He made me doubt myself. No, but the reality is that I never really thought that was even going to be a thing. And I never even got to the point where I was like, oh, am I going to go out of state to pursue this? Like it wasn't, I thought in my mind, I'm going to be like a producer, I'm going to hopefully maybe one day be a PD or an assistant PD or in management. That was sort of where I thought that was going. So it's really pretty wild what's transpired.
All right, so just for folks who don't know, when she says Mark Chernoff at that time was the program director for WFAN, and obviously, he was the guy who was making all the decisions for who is and who is not going to be on the air.
Right. And I think still it was a little bit of a novelty to have a woman doing updates or.
Yeah, at that point there were no women doing updates.
Not.
It was Bob Husler and John Minko, all these famous voices who've been there forever.
And fast forward 26 years and there's still no women except me. So, I mean, it's very strange. It's really weird if you think about it, but.
So they hear you, he hears you doing play-by-play on the air, et cetera, et cetera. When did the momentum start? Where did you break through? Like how did it build from there?
Well, I mean, if I think back to if I think top 5 single most exciting moments of my life, that was definitely one of them. And I remember Mike sent Chris Carlin to the city because we were staying at the Marriott to take me out to dinner and celebrate. It was like a big deal. And then that note from Mark and then training, I take it back. Sam Ryan was doing updates overnight. So I feel bad. I missed that one. She too was sort of in that sort of, same bubble as I would be, I guess. And I'm sure she didn't like me at all because why would she be happy to train someone like me, like super?
I think you might have predated Sam by like a couple of weeks or a month.
No, I don't know. What do you mean? No.
Because yes, Sam was doing updates with Joe Beningo on the overnight.
Right.
I think you might have predated her just by like a month or so.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You would know that better than me. I just thought she had been there forever. I guess I wasn't really super up on who was doing what there. And so, because I was still in college, I was still, doing that whole college life thing. And so, yeah, she trained me and I'll never forget that. I looking back think, wow, like how, I'm going to be the way that she treated me, which was with kindness and support and not like the way people think women treat other women, which for the most part can be true. And so, yeah, she was great. So she was there doing updates. And so I guess they thought having another one of, her type doing updates was a thing to go with. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting you're talking about the relationships of the people who were training you at this point. It's funny because I wanted to ask you about, the big egos in these radio talk show hosts. I'm not going to mention any names, but they might have been mentioned earlier. And, dealing with difficult people maybe in the radio industry. And, I guess there's relationships with other women there too, because maybe you're trying to get the same job, you're trying to get the same opportunities. What about the relationships, and how did you handle all of that? What was your way to go?
Well, Tushar will definitely remember this. There were women there that were behind the scenes that absolutely did not like me just did not like me, and so
it wasn't just women. I can attest to this. It wasn't just the women.
I know, and it's not a person. It wasn't a personal thing. It was a jealousy thing. I was never mean to anybody, and you know me, Tushar. Like I pride myself on being kind and just being the person people can talk to and be supportive of people. And so it was because I was young. I was getting a break that I definitely did not deserve. I mean, definitely hands down did not deserve the opportunity I got. For whatever reason, I got lucky. And so people just didn't, some people were great and loved me and I'm friends with them to this day. And then other people just couldn't stand me. And Tushar, do you remember we had terminals? We didn't have computers or PCs at the time. And if you wrote messages, there was like no real email either. You would write them through the terminal. And if you wanted to see what other people were writing, you could just pop in and like see their.
Yep. You could see what everyone else was doing.
Right.
Exactly.
And I would like intercept. Even Tushar was involved in some conversations that were not that savory about me. And so I saw them.
I was?
Yeah, you were. But I never held it again. I understood. I got it. I understood. And maybe that's one thing about me I can, be proud of, is that I just never let it bring me down. And I never changed the way that I dealt with people, even knowing that they were jealous of the opportunity that I was getting.
That was going to be my question. Did you push harder? Did you overcompensate? Did you pivot? Like
nah.
Nothing?
Mm-mm. No, I don't feel like I did anything different. I feel like, and Tushar said this in the beginning, is I was focused. I had a singular purpose, which was to do something with my life. My dad absolutely did not believe that this was ever going to happen. My mom wanted me to go to college to meet a husband. Like, I'm not from, you know what I mean? It's not, I had one focus, which was basically to prove them wrong, but also to do well and do something and succeed in whatever I was going to do. And so, no, I didn't change the way that it didn't motivate me. Let's just say
Yep.
that it didn't motivate me. I didn't need any of that to motivate me.
Who are some of those
So,
people that brought you along and were just great influences upon your career?
well, ironically, Francesa always helped me out. He was always kind. He was always there. But really, Susan Waldman was somebody that I was in touch with in college that had corresponded with me in the kindest way. She didn't have to give me the time of day. And I remember she was being interviewed. It came down that she had cancer. And Bob Raisman in the Daily News wrote an article about her, and she mentioned me. Here I was, this like 19-year-old kid at Rutgers. And so she was talking about how, she's an influence, obviously, for people like me. And so she brought me up, and we had just met a couple times or one time. And so she was always somebody that I looked up to and thought was so generous with her time, giving me her phone number, being willing to talk to me. Even, she's just a really great person. And so some people have issues with her. She's a tough cookie, and maybe that's what I liked about her. So
That's interesting though. Were you worried about, we've all had an on-air experience where it ends up being a train wreck, right? Like you
Everything
can't get
I
out
did-
of it, right?
everything.
Were you worried about, you're getting extra scrutiny maybe, like, I don't know, I get nervous,
No,
right?
I was terrible. Like Tushar. Like Tushar, I
You were
was
not.
no.
Erica, I watched you on my television. Stop that.
No.
I watched you.
No.
I watched Francesa's show when he was solo, and you did all those updates. You knocked it out of the park.
No.
I know
But when
you
I
did.
first started, doing, filling in overnights on the weekends on a Saturday night with Tony Page, I didn't even know how to breathe correctly. I was talking out of my nose. I was doing all the things that you do when you're first starting and you're super nervous. And I was bad. I remember getting off the air and Craig Shamides, who was a producer at the time, he was in the newsroom. Tushar knows him, and he just basically looked at me. He was like, "That was terrible." I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, but
You got to hear that.
Shamides was doing that in fun. Come
I
on,
don't
you
know.
gotta
do that.
No, I don't
I
think
mean-
so. Tush, I think I was. And I remember that night I was on with Beningo after the Big East tournament, and you were producing, and I got off the phone with you, and Beningo had interviewed me about the Rutgers basketball team, and I was so jacked up, I wasn't even in the right frame of mind to have a conversation about the team, and I don't even know if I was equipped even at the time, right? But I got off the phone and I was like, how'd that go? And Tushar's like, oh, it wasn't that good. I
Hey,
Are you
Honesty.
kidding me?
no, you did.
Honesty.
What are these conversations?
You did.
He's told
You
both
did.
of us
She
exactly the
remembers.
same
I
thing.
remember-
You know that.
And
Yeah.
I remember it, and it was. Like looking back, it's hilarious. It's hilarious how right he was. It was probably horrible, and so thank God I don't sound like that now. But listen, every day.
So okay, so let's talk about it because everyone fails, right? First of all, if you're gonna fail, you might as well do it on Overnight with Beningo, right? And then
On the overnight period.
then the
Exactly.
Overnight Tony Page, one of those
Yeah,
guys. That's okay.
That's more like it. Weekend overnight would be the way.
It's the least amount of ears, but are you doing chops? Are you practicing reps? Are you going over your work? You sound so driven. I would think you would then take that to the practice setting, like shooting layups,
Yeah,
right? You
no,
had to get this down.
I did, but I think what really was most important at the time was just getting the writing down, not feeling like I had to, I was nervous. I was worried about saying names incorrectly. I was worried, there were a lot of things I didn't know. And so, listen, put it in context. I was 20 years old. I had just graduated college, and I look at these kids now, these college kids, like their world is where they are. They're in these little bubbles and they live within the bubble. So all of this outside stuff, things that I had never had to cover before outside of Rutgers sports, I had to learn. And so I sort of observed a lot. I made sure I kept my mouth shut. I listened. I made sure I was paying attention. Nowadays you can look up anything on YouTube and get a pronunciation. But back then, as a 20-year-old female in a newsroom with all men that majority of them think I'm an idiot and I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing and they're jealous, like they're not going to help you. So I'm not going to say, hey, how do you say this name? Right. It was like maybe a hockey name or any kind of, if the, I'm saying the World Cup, but like obviously if there was a tennis match going on or something and there was a name I couldn't pronounce, I would like secretly have to go into a back studio and make a phone call to a friend because there was nobody there that I would actually open up to and admit that I didn't know how to do something. So yeah, so you say practice reps, but my main concern was just not sounding like an idiot with the material. I didn't care how I sounded, if I sounded nasal or I couldn't breathe. That stuff I thought, oh, that'll come when I calm down. It was knowing stuff that was really weighing on me that made me very nervous. And that was the stuff I went to study.
All right. So, all right, Erica, look, if I was nasty to you in the back of the day, let me just start by apologizing. Because honestly, because I will, once again, full disclosure, what she's saying is not 100%, is not incorrect. I was actually called into a meeting with the program director and the sports director at the time over at FAN to discuss this rumor that had been going around about people who were jealous of Erica being on the air, and somehow I was quote unquote one of the ringleaders.
I had no idea. This is news to me.
Yeah, I was brought in, and I was like, well, she's on the air, and if you want to be on the air, and I looked at the two of them, and I was like, I have no clue as to what you're talking about. I was like, yes, of course, I want to be on the air at WFAN, but how could I ever be jealous of her having an opportunity? That would be insane. Like she didn't do anything wrong to get an opportunity. Right. Someone gave her the opportunity and she ran with it, and she's doing a hell of a job. I have no idea what this is all about. And I basically was like, you guys are crazy. Whoever said this is out of their mind, blah, blah, blah. But if, and you are saying if I was nasty to you and there was, obviously that is the case, I really apologize. I swear to God, I apologize.
You weren't to my face at all. And like I said, and I don't even know that the intercept.
Even behind your back, that's a bad job.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I obviously never held it against you because we're still friends. So and obviously, like I said, it didn't bother me in that way. It was more the women that I was disappointed with, because I felt like, what is this? Like, shouldn't we all be like kumbaya, which is so naive, right? 20 years old, like who,
Look, I mean, part of that was the atmosphere in the WFAN bullpen back in the day. It was kind of toxic. I'll admit it was kind of toxic. There was a lot of knives out for everybody, right? Yeah. There was a lot of knives out for everybody. So yes, I understand. I understand that thinking. All right. So my next question is going to be, you have kind of established yourself now as one of the voices on WFAN. You have gotten the reps in, right? You've made the effort, etc. What did you see yourself? Where did you see yourself moving now in terms of the career? Obviously, you're doing well at FAN. What were your aspirations now moving forward?
So, I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I think things all changed for me when I had kids. So when I was younger, I was doing updates, and my singular goal at that point, once I mastered doing, getting some shifts on doing the updates, was maybe getting a play-by-play job, right? So I started doing games for Manhattan College on broadcast.com. I mean, you have to remember the technology is so different than what exists today. And I was doing Manhattan College games. I had started working and, just trying to, get in anywhere doing play-by-play. And it never really took off. I did have opportunities to do college soccer for CSTV, which is now CBS Sports Television. I did a full season. And that was when my son was, I would say, 6 months old. And I was traveling 5 days a week and home too. And I did that for a full season. And I thought, this is not for me. So I think the shift for me from being super career minded to, all right, well, this isn't going to work out. This is not what I want right now. My priorities really changed. And so I gave up the dream of doing play by play, because I knew I was not going to be somebody who could travel and put the hours in that I needed to put in to make that work. So that ended. I did leave the fan for a little while. I went to ESPN Radio and helped them launch that in 2001 in New York City. And I was there for a year and 2 months. It was horrendous. I left. I came back to the fan. There's a lesson in not burning bridges, right? So,
for sure.
Yeah, I knew I hated being there. And I had called, again, Mark Chernoff. I said, I want to quit. It was a Friday. He said, let me know when you quit. I called him, that night, and I was on the air with Mike and Chris the following Tuesday back at the fan. Oh, wow. So, yeah. So, and then since then I've been, I anchored on NBA TV. I've worked for Major League Baseball. I've done a lot of little things, but never anything full time. I think my whole life has been freelance. I think that's sort of like bouncing around, not having roots and not planting roots. I guess the fan would be the only roots that I've really planted. And while I've been there, I've been able to do a bunch of other stuff. I cover, right now I'm covering the World Cup for Westwood One. I do the Olympics. I've been doing the Olympics for Westwood One since 2008. I started doing some money news on Bloomberg for fun and, obviously to make money because that's what it's all about right at this point. But as far as the future holds, I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I'm at a point now where I've done almost everything in radio that I can do without, leaving New York City. So, yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
So do you have any regrets in terms of like, I guess maybe regret's the wrong word to use, but do you feel that having to raise the family and being a working mom in the business? Because we've had other women on the podcast with us, but they've never had the family to go along with the career. You obviously have the family to go along with the career. Do you feel like there had to have been a major give and take being a working mom in the industry?
Yeah, you definitely cannot have it all. Like, I don't know who says that they can have it all. It doesn't exist. You are constantly juggling balls in the air. When my kids were little, it was like finding babysitters and feeling guilty missing things. And so it's a very, very difficult balance. But once you make one thing a priority, that's it. For me, my kids are my priority. I would give all of this up if it meant they needed me and I couldn't do it, right? So, and I wouldn't look back. So regrets, no regrets. I always wanted to be a mom. Like, I don't know, when I grow up, I want to be on the radio. I always wanted to be a mom too. And so thank God I was able to make that happen because I do see a lot of women, a lot of my peers that, never got married or got married but never had kids and their work is their life. And so I feel so lucky that I was able to make the choice that I made for myself. I mean, obviously, it's a personal choice. And I feel lucky that I have a very supportive husband who's always like, go do it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. That's his thing. We'll figure it out. And my kids, they think it's funny. They don't care that I'm on the radio. They have they want to know if I know anybody. Yeah, they don't listen to the radio. They love sports. They listen to podcasts. I don't know any of the people they listen to, and they could care less what I do. So it's kind of funny, but
I do want to go back to, you've painted a picture for me that I didn't know about you, which is great because it spurns a conversation about, how difficult it was for you to get started, even though you got this tremendous break, right? You were able to, through perseverance, dedication, knock that wall down once it was, cracked open for you, so to speak. How do you think the landscape has changed for women trying to get into this industry today? Has it become easier? Has it become more difficult? There are certain challenges now that they certainly didn't face back then. How is the landscape now? I know you do some teaching, so, I know you're in contact with the younger generation. What do you think about the landscape today?
Well, I think there's so many more opportunities. There were not many opportunities for someone like a 20-year-old female college student coming out of, a metro area college, like looking to get started, right? There were maybe a couple places you could go. You could go to MSG at the time, or you could go to Sports Channel. I think that was a thing. Or you could go to the Fan, right? But now there's so much more that these kids can do. And the doors are wide open for them. As a female, I think the women have more opportunities now. But I don't know. I mean, I think it might be unfair for me to say because I'm not in their shoes and I don't know the other pressures that they face and the other things they have to deal with in the world. So, I don't know. My perception from where I stand is if I were coming out of school right now and I knew what I knew then, I would be going nuts. Like I would be able to break down doors and be places anywhere, do anything.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know if it's fair for me to say, but I definitely think there's more opportunities. I will say that. So
knowing that you're teaching, what are you telling your students when it comes to finding a way to stand out or differentiate themselves?
Well, I do focus primarily on writing because that's a big thing for them. But you'd be surprised. A lot of them, it's a broadcasting class, but most of them have no interest in going into broadcasting. They don't know what they want to do, to be honest. There are some kids that want to be sportscasters, and they have opportunities to intern at Sirius XM or on podcasts or things like that did not exist obviously when I was in college. But I just listen. I think my main thing that helped me was that I knew how to speak to people. I think I knew how to do, and I don't want to say manage people because that sounds devious and underhanded, but I knew how to be mature, be a person, have conversations, not be shy, be bold, and things like that. That I think kids today, if they just applied themselves in that way and knew how to kind of work the system, so to speak, and work people a little bit, I think that's how you get places. I know that sounds pretty crummy.
Are you kind of disappointed to see that with the students you teach now? Is that they're not as driven as you were? They don't seem to have or maybe they obviously they're kids, but they're not as focused in terms of what am I going to do for a career?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just happenstance that that's the case with the group that I'm with right now. A lot of them do have a lot like great focus, and they do want to be sportscasters. Some want to be writers. Some want to just follow, certain sports. Like there's a kid in my class that just loves ultimate fighting, so he makes that his focus. And so there are kids that are into that. But to be honest, they don't listen to the radio. They don't watch television. So they don't live in the same world we live in, right? We watch TV, we listen to radio. It's like our lives, but they don't exist in that world. So I don't know what they want to do. They don't really convey that to me clearly, but they're sort of still figuring it out. And I don't know that that's any different than how it was, 25, 30 years ago.
So if that's the case, so I mean, obviously, 25, 30 years ago, you only really had TV and radio to deal with, but as you mentioned now, the kids you're dealing with, they're not really listening to the radio. They're probably barely watching TV. So as a professor now over at Rutgers, how do you navigate that landscape now, looking at new media and incorporating that into your teaching?
It's hard for me. I have to be up on, podcasting, and I have to know what's going on as far as all the social media sites that they're into, which I mean, and they call me a boomer. I mean, I am such a boomer because I will say things.
Well, your email absolutely makes you a techno boomer. That is for sure.
I am, but I like it. I think it's funny. Like, I don't care that I'm a little behind on all that stuff. I think it's probably
a little behind.
Probably, I know.
Oh
I know.
God.
You could say it. I have an AOL address without any numbers in it.
You have an AOL address, lady.
An AOL address without numbers in the name. That's even worse.
What is this, 1997?
Yes.
Get out of here.
I like that sound that it still makes, the dial-up internet.
Oh my God,
Erica's very loyal. She's been with the fan for 25 years. She's been with AOL for 45 years. She's a very loyal person.
Yes, I am very loyal. So I don't even know what I was saying, but I think they teach me as much as I teach them. I think that's the best way to say it.
Okay, so speak to these young people, because I know there's young people out there listening that want to get into this career, and you've been through that jungle. Rank these for me: education, experience, relationships, and dumb luck.
I would say relationships, dumb luck, experience, education.
Wow, education last.
Yes,
How about that?
I think so. If you want to do it,
How about
if you want to
that?
do what we're doing, I think it's last. I know that's terrible. And listen, I have a kid in college.
No, I don't think it's terrible.
No, it's great. It's insightful. It's insightful. It really is.
I have a kid in college, and I always say to him, listen, it's all about relationships. Forget about your grade. Forget about any of that. None of it matters. It's all about who you know and how you manage people. That's it.
Yep. And it's interesting hearing you talk about that, because I'm currently teaching a college class also. And it's sort of interesting being, I'm in my early 50s, so being the old guy in the room trying to relate to all the 21-year-olds. And I'm doing okay, but there's so many platforms I've never heard of, et cetera, et cetera. It's an incredible experience for me. So, Eric, I guess the one last question I have for you, you've talked about you're not sure what's next, you're sort of content, but if there was one thing you could do going forward that's sort of a dream job or a dream thing you haven't had a chance to take a swing at, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. You mean in sportscasting?
In sportscasting, or maybe above
In
and beyond.
broadcasting,
Maybe it's
in
becoming the
broadcasting.
dean of the communications department at Rutgers. Like, is
No,
there
it's
something
definitely-
in front of you that you'd love to try to wrap your arms around at some point?
It's definitely not that. I think I've always felt like what I do doesn't matter, and that like I'm giving scores to, a certain demographic. Like it just feels kind of unfulfilling in that way. So I guess I would have to say finding something that I feel like I could do that would make the world better. I know that sounds really weird, but I just never felt super fulfilled with the jobs that I'm doing. I mean, I look at, nurses and doctors and firefighters and people who volunteer. And I guess going forward, that would be something I would aspire to do. But I've done I've done sideline, I've anchored, I've done play-by-play, I've done, so TV, radio, you name it. I've had a chance to do it. So there's really nothing in the business that I have missed out on giving a go. I just feel like maybe outside of it, doing something that makes, my community or, the world, I know that sounds hokey, a better place.
I totally get it. I think we all get to that point in our careers.
Yeah, other than giving scores to gamblers.
To gamblers all day? You don't like that anymore?
Well, that sounds like a very ambitious and good pursuit to keep in mind. Tushar, before we break, is there any last thing you would like to say to Erica?
Any apologies?
I think we've had a therapy session here. There's a lot to come out.
I think I painted Tushar in the wrong light. He was the least of the offenders, because even if behind my back, I don't think he was super thrilled or, had his own goals and dreams, which I totally understand. There were people that were overtly out to bring me down.
Nasty.
Yes, and he was not one of them. And if he was, believe me, I'm a grudge holder. I would not be doing this podcast.
This would be it.
Yeah. This would be, this would not have happened.
You would spill the beans.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I just
I will say this before we let you go. One of my favorite memories with Erica was which was the Olympics we worked together. Was it Pyeongchang?
Probably. Yeah. Oh, I think it was Pyeongchang. Yep.
It was one of the winter games, right?
Yes. I'm sure.
Right. So we were both working at Westwood One for one of the winter games it was in South Korea. This was at the time actually when, there were all sorts of rumors that the North is going to invade the South. There's going to be a nuclear war and blah, blah, blah. The world is going to end right after, at some point during the Olympic Games.
Yes.
Anyway, but I hadn't seen Erica at that point in at least 10 years. I hadn't seen her in at least 10 years. We hadn't spoken in at least 10 years. And you were actually a very intimidating person.
What?
To all the other, not to me, I don't care. I've known you for a long time.
Right.
But to all the other producers in that room, you were a very intimidating force. And when I saw you for that first time, it was obviously seeing an old friend. It was obviously seeing an old friend again after all these years. I'm like, oh my God, Erica, great to see you. Blah blah blah. We give each other a hug, and all that stuffiness seemed to kind of leave the room, and all the other young kid producers were like, oh my gosh, Erica Herskowitz? Yeah, of course, I've known her for 100 years. What are you talking about? Leave me alone. So it was just it was a really nice moment, and it's one of those things that I've always kind of taken to heart, because I've known Erica for a long time. I consider her a good friend. I'm always so happy when I'm able to kind of work with her and speak with her and just kind of catch up with her from time to time. Even here, just catching up with her and knowing a little bit more about her life and what's going on with her. These are special moments to me, because obviously, we all have good people that we come up through the industry with. Erica's one of the best.
Oh my gosh, that is the funniest thing, that people would be intimidated by me. That is hilarious. Thank you.
You are an intimidating person, Herskowitz. Stop this.
I'm such a goof. I'm so silly. It's ridiculous. But thank you for telling me that. That's a really sweet.
It's the
sweet
focus.
Story.
The focus comes across as very.
I don't know. I'm not that.
Right?
I'm not that focused anymore. I mean, I was.
It's the kids.
Yeah.
It's the kids. That's what's going
on. I think my
gosh.
takeaways are going to be that she seems very nice. She seems very personable. I don't feel intimidated at all, and I'm very glad that we've had this opportunity to talk to Erica today. So, Erica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. This was really a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Thank you. Wow. And I'll go get a Gmail account now.
Oh my God! Would you do this? Join the rest of us here. Look, at least get a Yahoo account, for God's sakes. What's wrong with you?
I think I have one. I just forgot the password. What am I gonna do?
Oh my God!
Are there better conversations than the ones that make Tushar incredibly uncomfortable?
I come off like a jerk. Oh my God! Man, I was a jerk when I was younger.
I don't think so. It didn't seem. If you were, she did not know that, which is very good news.
I'll tell you what. If I was her, I'd hold a grudge.
Well, beyond that, what an interesting person in terms of balance, perspective, courage, putting yourself out there, dealing with, different challenges along the way. What an interesting person.
The one thing I'll take away from that interview is, she's like us. She's a veteran of the industry, and she's now seen how the industry has progressed. And I was very impressed by the fact that, she is a working mom and how she has been able to balance that family and career aspect, and where she was okay with saying, okay, the career has to come second to my life and my family. That is very true what she said, that, there have been a lot of people in this industry who have said the career will always come first. It can only come first, and have done that to the detriment of saying they're going to have long-term relationships. They're going to have kids. What she did there is make a real choice. And, I enjoyed hearing that story a great deal. I mean, I say it all the time. It takes courage to do that. It takes a courage to make a decision like that.
There's so much to take out of that interview, right? I mean, toxic environments, how to handle them, getting opportunities when you're younger, and jealousy of people around you. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. It's amazing. How about education being like the least important in terms of career development? I mean, I think there's so much to take out of this interview. It's difficult to unpack it all, but yeah, when you're 19, 20, 21 years old, in maybe that, in this case, a WFAN toxic environment, I couldn't imagine the hoops that she had to jump through to climb the ladder of success, right? Just because she was given the opportunity at the beginning doesn't mean that she was going to succeed, because there were a lot of people and a lot of energy around her that was really against her. So I think it's an impressive career path. And I agree with you, T. I really admire trying to raise a family and have a career at the same time. I think there's so much to be said for that. And a woman in this industry who just wouldn't give up, just was so determined that it was going to happen. You were either with her or she was going to go through
that's
you.
it. You're right.
The determination was just really impressive.
Tushar, I guess I'll pivot to a question. Being there and sort of seeing things play themselves out, did she have protectors, so to speak, that you saw?
Yeah. When you have the biggest show on the air and they're the ones who are spotting for you, she had protection, right? So she had people who believed in her. But, once again, it's not like she wasn't talented.
No.
She had the ability to do it. And as she said before, once they put her on the overnight, going on Mike and Chris is one thing, because then it's kind of as even she said, it's kind of a goof, and they just kind of wanted to be like, oh, check this out. We got a pretty girl on the show and she can do updates. But no. At some point, when you get the call from the program director and he says, okay, we're going to give you a shift and see what you can do. And then he puts you on the overnight. Well, then you know what? There's no net. Now you're working on your own. And she proved herself. She did prove herself. And she worked with the right people there. Sam Ryan, who was there for a while, she did a great job herself. And, there were many others who helped her along the way as well. Many of the other update anchors, hey, try this, do this. I thought I tried to help out as much as I could as well. I mean, my God, once I think about this interview, I keep coming off like a jerk every time I think about this interview. My God. But no, I mean, there was definitely a support system in there for her when, from many of us, there was a support system in there for many of us when we could see, she was not just an act. She could do the job because she had the chops to do it.
And you even said knives out, right? Like that was the environment.
For everybody.
So she better have protection, right? Because, we've all been in these work environments before, right? Where it's toxic and you just, sink or swim. Everyone wants the gig, everyone wants the job, and everyone would do anything to crawl over all each other and get that gig, So I think it is important to, when you find yourself in these situations, to really have that self-reflection, that confidence to know who you are, what you're doing, why you're there. And maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not. I mean, you can leave a toxic environment too, but she really climbed that mountain, and I'm proud of her, because it sounds like even though she got the break, it wasn't necessarily in her favor, maybe, partially, but knives out, man. And that it's a tough field. Radio is that kind of field sometimes.
And to keep things in perspective, as Tushar talked about before, meaning she met her husband there, she started a family, she prioritized things in the way that felt right to her. And she, had the perseverance and strength and confidence confidence to see that through, to bring her to where she is today. And you can hear the smile on her face, and she got through it. And it seems like she's in a really good place. And only a special person can pull that off.
I'm super proud of her. I love Erica Herskowitz. I can't say that enough. And I hope she listens to this podcast. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the past. I love Erica Herskowitz.
We never know how we come across in a professional world, though, right? Sometimes the toughest people, the people who are trying to toughen you up, are considered the jerks. T, I know when we started in radio together, because I didn't do radio prior to knowing you, you corrected me. You put me in my place. You told me when I was good and when I was bad. And I always appreciated that feedback. But I think when you're 19 years old, and a pretty woman, it's different maybe because there's a lot riding against you and a lot of jealousy and a lot of knives out. So T, it can be a tough field,
and
man.
The one thing that we should all take into consideration is that, she was 19 at the time and I wasn't much older, right? I'd only been out of school a couple of years. So we're all kind of relatively close in age. So yeah, that jealousy factor comes into play a great deal. And while you say, yeah, I was a jerk to you when, harder on you when I came over to...
You're still a jerk to me.
I can't... I was gonna say,
less
take that back. So I've obviously mellowed as I've gotten older, because when I was over at FAN and I kind of want to, maybe touch on the notion of knives out. Look, when you're at the #1 station in America for sports, because that's what it was back in the 90s,
Absolutely.
right? Even to today, it was the #1 place in America to work if you want to talk about sports. Everybody there has an ego. And I mean not just the on-air people, like down to the tape cutters, like myself and the producers. Everybody has an ego. Everybody has a personality. So when they see opportunities happening around them that they're not getting, oh yeah, they're about trying to hamstring people and cut throats. I mean, that's the
Game
type
on.
of place it was for a long time. And you know what? For better or worse, it honed me into the type of broadcaster I am today. I consider myself a sharp person, and I kind of want to take a lot of that experience I took there, obviously take the bad parts away and use that experience that I learned there because it's bad for me to say that at the same time and saying, I didn't learn anything while I was there. I learned a ton there. That was like graduate school for me. And I loved my time at FAN. I've said it before. I loved my time at FAN, but at the same token, I see the environment for what it was, and it was not for everybody because of the atmosphere at times that it fostered.
Well, it's clear that you made it through in flying colors, and it's also clear that Erica survived and flourished while going through the Tushar Saxena.
I love Erica Herskowitz.
Well, after that conversation, I'm a big fan too, but it might be a little early in our relationship for me to start throwing the L word around. But nonetheless, we want to thank Erica Herskowitz and all of you for joining this episode of No Wrong Choices. We post about once a week, so please follow us here or check out our website at NoWrongChoices.com. You can also find us on social media. Our handles on Twitter and Instagram are The Fellas NWC. At Facebook, you can find us at No Wrong Choices. On behalf of Larry Shea and Tushar Saxena, I am Larry Samuels, and we are The Fellas.